The housing crisis may be the biggest crisis Canada is facing, especially for young people trying to get into the housing market. If they don't have wealthy parents to buy the house for them or put the down payment on the house for them, they're usually crap out of luck. They're either going to go rent a one-bedroom apartment with a friend. Hopefully, if they have a spouse, they can split the rent. And maybe they can actually rent a basement apartment if they're lucky and they work like 40 hours a week plus. If you have minimum wage, you may even consider just living with a friend or just staying at home with your parents. There's a lot of things to consider if you are trying to enter the housing market or just exist living in Canada. At this point, it's not even just getting into a market. The fact that we're even calling housing a market in general, I feel like is kind of weird because it's kind of, saying it's a financialized part of the economy when I really feel like housing, it's not necessarily that it should be a right, but it shouldn't be a marketplace where it just continues to go up like the 401k. It's just unbelievable that we're at this point. And we're going to take a look at some housing crisis videos here today. And the first one is crazy. This is a place I used to live in, Toronto. I talk a lot about Toronto. And this is the tiniest house in all of Toronto, guys. Check it out. It's literally like an alleyway house.
Tucked away in St. Clair West Village is Toronto's tiniest house. Originally, the small piece of land was built as a laneway for the adjacent houses, but the curbs were never lowered for vehicle access. The gap remained empty until the early 19th century when a man named Arthur Wheaton decided to develop the 7-foot lot and construct a tiny home. The space offers a pretty modern, open concept vibe considering its small size of only 300 square feet. Given the space constraints, the main floor comprises of a living room, a kitchen, and a small area just big enough for a Murphy bed. In 2008, the little house gained international recognition when it was featured on The Ellen Show, spotlighting its listing price of $173,000, a price that has surely skyrocketed in the last few years. So the next time you're near Rogers Road in Dufferin, check out the little house.
I used to live right around there, and I've never seen that house. I literally used to live right around Dufferin and Rogers Road, but that was a while ago, a long time ago. That is insane. 173, and this is like 2008, by the way. That was expensive even back then. Now you're looking at probably close to $800,000 for that house. Isn't that insane? Maybe close to $1 million? I don't know. Every time I check the housing market, I have to shake my head, give my head a shake, and say, what is going on? Especially when likely if you had $100,000, this is probably what you're going to afford right here. Nice little house right there. Yep, just go to Home Depot, just find the little shack, and honestly, that's probably better than a tent in some cases, right? I don't know. Would you rather a tent or would you rather live in a nice tool shed that should be out in your backyard, with a home that you actually own? That should be in your backyard. But no, we're going to maybe put that on a little plot of land and call it a home. Nice plastic smell there in the summer, burning away on the sides. Oh my God, this is just insane.
This tiny home in Toronto has no bedrooms and it just sold for over $1 million. That's right, this home is in the Junction, it's 632 square feet and it has no separating walls except for the washrooms. The home was initially listed for $799,000 and sold for $200,000 over asking in just a matter of days, but I gotta admit, although it's very small, it is quite nice on the inside, still not worth $1 million.
Yeah, well, at least he tried to compliment it at a certain point. Yeah, I don't think that's worth $1 million. Hell, even if the market keeps going up in 10 years, I don't know if that would be. And again, I don't know. I'm not a real estate investor or anything like that. Far from it. I mean, I do own my townhome that I'm in right now. We bought it a few years ago. Luckily, we got really lucked out on this, and it was like $280,000. This place. That's like, you can't even, like, this is why I moved to Alberta. You can't even imagine spending anything like that in Ontario, especially Toronto. Just completely out of the question. Yeah, so every one homeless person, there's 12 empty houses. If that's actually true, then we are really in a failed society. That is just completely out of the question. What is going on? This country needs to be fixed.
Wait a damn minute. Wait a damn minute.
It's kind of true. I do remember And like maybe I don't know about 2016 in Toronto when I was living there in 2016. I don't think 500 was the price, but I remember in 2014 I rented an apartment with my girlfriend at the time, and it was $980 a month. And this is actually in a good area. This is like St. Clair Station, around that area, a very good area in Toronto if you know it. And we were kind of close to the Mount Pleasant Cemetery, and I remember being like, this is kind of expensive back then, but little did I know that I was actually lucky, and I was very fortunate at the time to be living in a place like that, because now that same apartment I checked a year ago just out of curiosity to see what the pricing was on it. That exact apartment that was a 1-bedroom apartment is now $2,300 a month. That's 10 years. That's a decade. It's more than doubled in a decade. Make it make sense.
This is that nobody actually wants houses in the city and anywhere to be cheaper. That's you don't have to look too far to see that. Any supply, any rhetoric about flooding the market with housing to make them cheaper and improve affordability, that's not going to happen.
Over 40,000 people in the tech space coming to Vancouver every year for 3 years, and they're going to meet the local companies, and some of those people are going to fall in love with our city, and they're going to set their companies up here. Now we're creating an environment where people can make more money, where they can afford these homes.
Did you hear that? Did you hear that? Bring in people that can afford these homes, because we know the current population can't afford them. We don't plan to help them at all. We don't plan to deal with that at all, besides, more police to deal with the inevitable issue of homelessness. We don't plan to deal with that at all. We just plan to bring in more wealthy people that can afford our apartments that are sitting empty. That's not a viable solution. And we've been saying the same thing since the 1980s, since the whole Expo thing. That was the plan back then too. Has it worked? No, it's never worked.
That's just crazy. The fact that they just blatantly say that too. We're going to get people who can actually afford these houses here and get companies to want to stay here and fall in love with the city. Until they go to East Hastings Street, and then they really don't fall in love with the city. Or maybe they do. I don't know. Maybe they're into that stuff. I don't know. I'm not going to say too much about that. Maybe we can talk about that in another video, but check this out. This is crazy. This is a father who lives in like northern Ontario, which is, used to be really cheap. Apparently not anymore.
It's a question for you. I live in Sudbury, Ontario. It's quite nice. You can see there are some really great places here. I've got an okay job. I make an okay amount of money. Not huge by any stretch. I'm not into the six figures, but not even close. But the odds of me finding and affording a 2-bedroom apartment for myself and my son, or hell, even coming close to affording a mortgage, are just completely off the table. I have a place with a friend right now, and I'm quite grateful for that. How the hell is anybody supposed to afford to live anymore? What do we do? I work for the government as my day job, and I'm trying to get this acting career going really, really well. But what do we do?
Okay, whoa. That's crazy. You work for the government, and the government salaries are some of the highest in all of Canada. Like if you usually, back in the day, I don't know about now, but back in the day, if you got a job with the government, you were like set for life. And he is living with his friend and his child. And he's also trying to do some acting on the side as a hustle and maybe make that his full-time job. What is going on? This one's a long one, but I love this rant. Very, very good here by Carly.
Hi. I only have a couple hundred followers, usually get like about 100 views per video, so this probably won't go anywhere, but I just want to rant for a second. And yes, I'm doing it in the bathroom. It has the best lighting. So my mom works for a real estate company, and she is newer to Toronto, and because of that she joined a bunch of little Facebook groups for like new people to Toronto. So through that, she actually gets a lot of clients who are moving to Toronto from overseas, because they join these little Facebook groups to get to know people. Hey, I need to move somewhere because they're moving here. They're taking their life and they're moving it to Toronto. Can anybody help? So there's a couple kinds of people that are coming. Some that my mother has worked with is literal refugees from Ukraine. And I haven't looked up exactly what happens when you get here, so I haven't looked at all the rules and the regulations and stuff as a refugee, what happens when you get to Canada. But from the stories that we have heard from the clients that my mom has had, basically you get here and they give you a place to live for a week. a week. And I don't know if anybody's tried to rent a place in the last couple of years, but especially in the last 7 months, it is ridiculously competitive. Ridiculously competitive, expensive, yes, but also competitive. So you need a job and you need a credit score, and you sometimes, even with a job and a credit score, if they're not good enough, then you need to be able to put up a couple months rent, not just first and last month, 4-5 months of rent upfront. You have a week to find a job? How the hell are you supposed to get a credit score? And everybody that came had the same budget, depending on whether they were looking for a 1-bedroom, a 2-bedroom, whatever. And right now, the average 2-bedroom is about $2,800. And that's pretty small, but it's $2,800, a nice one, a small one, but a nice one, about $2,800. You could probably get something for a little less. That's not like a basement apartment, even though a lot of basement apartments are very nice now. But people were coming with budgets of $1,700 for 2 bedrooms. Because we went to look at the website that literally is for refugees coming to Canada, and it's giving them a bunch of information about Toronto. And it says in 2015, here is the average price for a 1-bedroom, a 2-bedroom, at blah, 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 blah. 2015, that is almost 10 years ago. In the last year, rental prices have gone up. I don't remember the set, 35%, 45%, a stupid amount. So people think that they're escaping their country, coming here for help, and they think they have enough money. And then they get here. And it's not till they're here that they find out they don't. That's unfair. That's evil, in my opinion. It's inhumane. That pisses me off. I need a part 2.
Yeah, that's crazy. The fact that they're using 2015 data to lure people to come here is that's really shady, unbelievably shady. And, you might think, well, 10 years, how much has the prices changed? Well, here in Canada, under the new leadership, or the current leadership, yes, it's went up like crazy, more than doubled. And even during the pandemic, it's went even more bizarre.
So many terrible things driving up the cost of housing in Canada. And let me tell you, the very last thing that should be on that list of things making the housing crisis worse that piss you off should be somebody buying and renting out a 1-bedroom condo. And that's also if we assume that investors are actually making the housing crisis worse, which there are pretty much no economics to say that actually is the case. Then they would be on that list. Then they would be at the very bottom of it. Now, before you get mad at me and start talking about speculation, again, speculation and investing are 2 completely different things.
Yeah, 1-bedroom condos, thank God the market's finally kind of crashing. If there is any market in Toronto that I could see crashing, maybe even Vancouver as well, but I think Toronto especially, it would be the condo market. It's just that they build them like crap now. They're like shoeboxes. And they have crazy condo fees, and you have to pay all these other fees on top of that, the garage. If you have a car, you have to spend more on utilities. There's, the amount of things, taxes that you have to spend, but just the amount of fees in general that you have for a condo versus just a house is ridiculous. And you're in Toronto, so you're going to be spending a lot of money anyways. Just the fact that you're there living.
Thanks to the housing crisis here in Canada, we now have semi-detached homes in Waterloo, Ontario selling for almost $1.7 million. Now, I'm originally from Colombia, and it got me thinking, what would $1.7 million get you there? Now, I know some of you are going to try and justify $1.7 million for a semi-detached in Waterloo by saying that this place has luxury finishes, it's 2,500 square feet, all that good stuff. Well, compare that to an actual mansion with almost 12,000 square feet in an actual major city. Also for the price of a semi-detached in Waterloo, Ontario, you can find an actual mansion that's over 9,500 square feet and also has luxury modern finishes. Now some of you could be saying, I like my space, I like to be alone, I like country life. Gotcha. For the price of a semi-detached in Waterloo, Ontario, you can find yourself a lake with a mansion and a big yard with no neighbors nearby. Now obviously I'm joking around with this, and I know it's not realistic for a lot of us to just up and move to Colombia and buy a ranch. But as someone who's lived in different countries and traveled extensively and currently working as a mortgage broker in the trenches, seeing how hard it is for people to qualify for a home here in Canada, It's getting really frustrating seeing the housing crisis only get worse here in Canada and watch property prices reach insane levels where you live.
Yep, he's not wrong. He is not wrong. My wife is from Brazil, and Brazil, it's pretty pricey actually, especially in the big cities. But for even what we could get for the price we put here, which is a cheaper city of Calgary compared to like Vancouver and Toronto, we can get something pretty good. Heck, if we were like using Toronto prices, what we can get in Brazil, holy crap. Yeah, it would be nuts. Anyways, guys, let me know your thoughts about this video. Let me know your thoughts about this topic down below in the comment section. Again, not a very pleasing topic, but it's definitely something that needs to be addressed and definitely, I think, deserves to be covered. Anyways, hope you enjoyed, and I will see you guys in the next one. Take care.